welcome to No Holding Back with me, Susan Estridge. Each week, I'll have the privilege of being joined by some of the biggest names across America from the worlds of media, politics, and law. Nothing will be off the table. I'll be speaking my mind and encouraging my guests to do so too. Today, I'm joined by one of the biggest names in Hollywood. He's got a list of filmography, the likes of which I've never seen. Ed Begley Jr. is known as an actor, prolific actor. He was in Elsewhere and got 6 consecutive Primetime Emmy Award nominations. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And a global Golden Globe nomination. He co-hosted with his wife, Rochelle Carson, the Great Green Living reality show titled Living with Ed. He's been in a million movies: Blue Collar, An Officer and a Gentleman, This is Spinal Tap, all of Chris Guest's mockumentaries, just a long list of credits, but he's almost as well known for his environmental activism and is one of the leaders of the environmental movement in this country. So it's just a pleasure, Ed, to have you with me today, and the author of a new book entitled To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It, which you can explain to us exactly what that means. Welcome to Ed Begley. Thanks for joining me.
Susan, thanks so much for having me on. It's so good to see you.
It's wonderful to see you too. I've respected you for so many years, mostly,
Likewise.
I must say, for your political work, which has been just amazing. How did you get the title To the Temple of Tranquility and Step on It?
It was actually uttered not on stage or in a movie, the way my dear friend Dick Stoll often had good lines like that. He uttered it in life. He was going to see someone after the Beatles saw the Maharishi. Many people who were friends of mine wanted to go get enlightenment from the Far East and did so, went to India and Pakistan, went to lots of different places in Indonesia. And he was going to this place called the Temple of Tranquility, but everything went wrong with the trip. He was late with a flight from Los Angeles to Hawaii. It was delayed. So then he missed the next flight to the Philippines, and he missed the boat he was going to take to this chain of islands, and then a little skiff, that was going to take him, a sampan to take him to this very small town on a small island. So when he finally got there very late, and having been through monsoon season, he got in the cab and said to the driver, "To the Temple of Tranquility and step on it." And so
It's a great line.
It's a great line. And I certainly in the 70s myself tried to rush serenity. And you can't rush serenity, of course. You must allow it to be. And by its very nature, it's something you should not rush. Tranquility, serenity, whatever name you want to give to it, you have to find it. And I certainly try to rush it by getting serenity in a bottle of Stolichnaya. And that's another way probably not to do it. It doesn't really sustain. It's not a good long-term plan to get tranquility quickly from anything chemical or liquid.
I was amazed reading your book. I didn't realize how much you could drink. I mean, it was describing your binges was really quite something. How did you get down that road, and how did you get off that road?
Well, they say it can be genetic, and my father certainly had that condition, and many family members have before and since. So it's kind of in my Irish blood to a certain extent. But I had certain problems as a young man that I thought I could solve, by numbing myself. And then you wind up not experiencing anything fully. You don't learn things because you don't really feel the pain or the pleasure of many important things in your life. So I decided to numb things out in the 60s and 70s as a solution to my problems, and it only put them off. So I finally got sober. There's many, different support groups that can help you. Now, fortunately, I found one. There's a saying, I can't, but we can. A group of people can often support each other and be there for the other person when they're tempted. So I did that back in the 70s. Finally, I got well and have been sober ever since. So it's been a very good result for me using that kind of 12-step program stuff.
You were a high-functioning alcoholic. I thought some of your
Yes.
stories This book is hysterically funny, or at least I'm about halfway through it, and it's hysterically funny
Oh,
because some of the stories you
Susan.
tell on yourself are really wonderful.
Yeah, I had a lot of laughs. I think also I'm one of those people that I think alcohol and drugs kind of saved me before they almost killed me because I was such a wreck. I needed some way to deal with them, and it temporarily fixed like a band-aid on a massive head wound. It stopped some of the hemorrhaging of emotionally that I was going through. But I finally got a better solution of surgery, let's say, to do things properly. And I finally figured that out by 1979. And it's been a pretty good life ever since.
It's been an amazing life ever since. But what were you thinking in the 70s? You had these amazing experiences. You were running with an incredibly fast crowd. Um, my favorite story is the one of you spending the weekend in county lockup for impersonating a
Right.
police officer. Can you tell us that one?
Yeah, I had gone to the Troubadour after having been in a club in the Valley doing my acts. And I was at the Troubadour drinking, actually. The story I told to the officers was a false one. I said I was performing on stage at the Troubadour. I was not. And but I walked next door to Tana's. You've been to Tana's many times
Yeah.
yourself, perhaps over the years. Is right next door, 2 doors away from the wonderful Troubadour club where many great people performed. And so I walked from there to Tana's, and some officers were in pursuit of someone. They were from the sheriff's department, LA County Sheriff's Department, because there was no West Hollywood back then. It was LA County. And they said, "Are you in pursuit?" or what have you. They were they felt bad that they had confused me for a real cop. And so they took me to county jail for impersonating an officer. And I did some of my best comedy work there in the cell for a few days, to keep people entertained that might have otherwise meant me ill. But
I thought it was very funny that your act was as a stand-up comic portraying a police officer, right?
right, and
And then you
there,
ended up in the county jail and you did your act, basically.
I did, because to keep people entertained is a very good currency of sorts. There's many different ways of currency there inside the jails, and one of them certainly is making the time go by quickly. So I just kept doing all kinds of different bits to keep the kind of alpha male who is the one in the cell. It's the cell that holds at county jail. Each cell holds 4 people, but we had 5 in there because there was overcrowding then as there is now. So one guy slept on the floor, but I just kind of held court and did lots of, funny things over the course of the weekend. And this guy who was kind of the top guy in our cell laughed continuously, and he said, "Just tell anybody that bothers you that I'll protect you." And he was a very fit, very strong, kind of alpha male guy. And so I didn't have any problems by keeping people entertained over the course of 3 days. It was some of my best work, Susan.
Really? So what happened in 1979 to change you?
I discovered 12-step programs in 1976, but I kept going in and out of these different rooms trying to get well, but I hadn't really bottomed out yet, as they say. And finally, there's this guy, Billy Boyle, who saw me coming in for the 4th or 5th time. And this guy said to me as I walked into a meeting with something new, bandaged or injured once again, he said, "Oh, Christ, how many times you've tried this? Begley, what are you doing? How many times have you been in and out of here? You're never going to get sober." I said, "What a terrible thing to say. You're supposed to be promoting the efficacy of this program. Why would you say something like that?" He said, "I heard you got a nice little apartment in Hancock Park." I said, "I do." He said, "You're married to a woman named Gretchen." I said, "It's Ingrid, but yeah, I'm married." "You got 2 kids?" "Yes." "Working on something? You got a job at Universal?" I said, "Yeah." "Battlestar Galactic?" He said, "Oh, you're screwed." "So what are you talking about? That sounds like a good list to me." He said, "No, you haven't lost anything. If you keep doing this, you will lose the wife, the job, the apartment, the kids, everything. So here's the way it's going to work now. From now on, you're going to call me. He's about a foot shorter than me, this guy, a skinny little guy, poking his finger into my chest and my face, saying, you're going to call me before you drink next time. Do you hear me? I'm going to come over there and kick your ass. I said, okay, Billy, you're going to kick my ass. He said, you promise you'll call me before you drink. I said, okay, shut up already. I'll call you before I drink. So then often it's a bad thing, which will get an alcoholic to drink again, but sometimes it's a good thing too. You get scared of the success. And I was about to start in a movie called The In-Laws with Peter Falk and Alan Arkin, a wonderful movie with big stars, and I had a nice part in it, directed by Arthur Hiller. And I was at LAX, and it was early in the morning. I was about to get on the plane to go work with these big stars and this great director with a great script by Andrew Bergman. And the guy opened up the bar there near the gate. And I went, I got to have a drink. I can't take the pressure. So I went and ordered a Bloody Mary and I put it to my mouth. I was just about to drink it. And I remembered Billy goddamn Boyle, that son of a bitch from that meeting on Rodeo. I put the drink down because I had promised him. And he said he's going to come and kick my ass if I don't. So I put the drink down. No cell phones back then, Susan. Go to a payphone. Hello, Billy. Yeah, who's calling me this early? I said, it's Ed Begley. You said to call you before I drink. And so I'm about to drink and I'm calling you. He said, oh, okay. Where you headed? And he was, Susan, he was like blasé about it. Like I'm asking him about the crossword or something. I said, I'm going to Cuernavaca. He said, I hear it's nice that time of year. Okay, give me a ring when you get there. I said, Billy, did I not make it clear? I've got to drink. Hold on. Bartender, did I just order a drink? Yeah, you're going to come drink it? I said, I'll be right there. Yes, I'm going to drink. And also, I looked at my boarding pass. I'm in first class. So I'm going to drink every drink that they'll serve me in first class. I'm going to get good. And you're telling me the weather's nice? He said, no, you're not going to drink. I said, I am going to drink. He said, you're not. I said, why am I not going to drink? And he said, because you called me. You idiot. If you wanted to drink, you would have taken the drink. You wouldn't have called me. If you didn't want to drink, I mean, if you wanted to drink, you wouldn't have come into that first meeting I met you at St. Augustine there in Santa Monica. You don't want to drink. That's why you called me. And I realized he was, excuse me, I realized he was right. And it was a big epiphany. He was a very, and he passed away years ago, but he was one of those great guys that really carried the message. And so I got sober because of that, because finally woke up to the fact that I actually did not want to drink. And that guy was the guy that gave me that simple thought that kept me sober all these years.
That simple thought that you really didn't want it.
Exactly. If I wanted it, wouldn't have called him. It never occurred to me till he said that. Said if you wanted to drink, you would have never walked in that first meeting. And he was right about that too. So that finally woke me up to where I am today.
It's amazing. How difficult was it? It must have been awfully hard because you were a very good drinker from what I can tell from your book.
I was, but then I finally, I started to, work on some of the things that they tell you to work on. Sometimes a thing like a painful moment or resentment can make you drink again, something like that. And so there's a wonderful way of thinking about that. If you have a resentment against somebody, it's like, and you're going to drink about it. You're going to drink over it. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other guy's going to die. And so little tricks like that and little word games and thoughts that people have developed over the years, I found very helpful. And that stuff just, really sunk in with me and enabled me to be here these many years later and to finally have a good career, all those things that I never would have had if I hadn't gotten well back in the late 70s.
That's an amazing story. How did you discover the environmental movement? You've been at it for longer than I think anyone I know, and in a real way and in a positive way, in a way that has influenced millions of other people. How did you get there?
It started in 1970, Susan, with the first Earth Day. And what came before that was a couple of things, some good things and some bad things. The bad thing was the smog, living in the smog in LA in the 50s and 60s. All those years, I was 20 years old then. I lived 2 decades in that horrible choking smog. And they said at the first Earth Day rally, we're going to clean up the air. We're going to clean up the water. I went, sign me up, because I had seen what the Santa Barbara oil spill had done. I had heard about what had happened in Cleveland, near Cleveland, with the Cuyahoga River catching fire. And that was the year before 1969 that happened. And so I wanted to do something. And also the good thing was I had been a Boy Scout. I saw nature up close and personal, and I thought it was something worthy of preserving. And my dad was a conservative that liked to conserve. And he really taught me a good many lessons. We had different views about Vietnam and other things, of course, but there was a lot we agreed on. He thought nature was worthy of being preserved too. And I was taught to turn off the lights, turn off the water, save string, save tinfoil. He had been through the Great Depression. He was the son of Irish immigrants, so he had a natural tendency to do those things that weren't as much environmental the way I was doing them, but just things to be thrifty that had the same exact result. So I learned a lot from my dad too. Another great lesson he taught me when I would complain about the smog, he would say, I know what you're against. You're against the smog, but what are you for? What are you doing to make things better? So with the first Earth Day, that really woke me up to the fact that I needed to do something and not just talk about it. So he died within a few days of the first Earth Day in 1970. So I did a lot of this stuff to honor him as much as to be an environmentalist. I became a vegetarian. I started riding my bike a lot. I rode it already a lot, but even more. Public transportation, I took it a lot. I took it even more. I started using baking soda and vinegar and water to clean up rather than harsh cleaners, composting, grew a little garden, all that stuff I just mentioned, Susan, very cheap and easy to do. And each one of those things saved me money. So I like that. I like saving money like my dad did. And so I then would buy, like a little solar oven or something, or got a rain barrel to collect rainwater. I kept saving money for the cheap and easy stuff and moving up the ladder and doing more stuff. And now I think it's important for your listeners and viewers to know, from 1970 to date, we have 4 times the cars in LA and millions more people, but a fraction of the smog. We've proven that we can do it. We can do the same thing with climate change, which is a big ticket item, but we can do it if we set our minds to it. All the stuff that we hope would work to clean up the air, it all did work. Cleaner cars, catalytic converters, cleaner power plants, cleaner homes, cleaner offices, by reducing pollution, by making our homes and offices more energy efficient. So we can do it. We just got to set our mind to it and do what works.
But we haven't, have we? I mean, we've cut the smog, that's for sure. I remember when I first moved to LA, you would look out the windows at the tall buildings downtown and see nothing. I mean, literally see
Yeah,
nothing, because you would
yeah,
just see smog. And now you can actually see the mountains and see the beach. But climate change is threatening our entire planet, and it
yeah.
seems like we're not doing what we need to do.
We're not doing nearly enough. So many people don't take it seriously, Susan. I know so many people that still ridicule it and trifle with it, and it's very clear that something's happening. Top people with PhD after the name who know about climate science have been telling us for years about the hockey stick. CO2 is going up and up since the Industrial Revolution, and now it's that short end of the hockey stick that's really rising in a way that's causing. We've always had hurricanes and wildfires and storms, and that's always been on the planet, but we have more of them now, and they're much, much stronger. So because of that, you see very clear proof. You see very clear proof that it's happening. Insurance companies have been telling us for a long time about climate change because it's affecting their bottom line. So they know that it's real. And so the military, the Pentagon knows about protecting our national security, protecting us internationally to make the country more secure. And they've been talking about climate change in a very real way for a while. So we have to take action. It's possible, but we got too many people saying that A, it's not happening, or B, it is happening. There's nothing that we can do about it. Both those statements are incorrect. We have proven we can clean up the air. We've proven that we can clean up the water with the Clean Water Act. And so we have to set about doing it in our country and share that technology with the world so that others can do it.
How do you get through to people, Ed? You've been at this for a long time and you know better how to get through to people than most. It's stunning the level of denial of the climate and the change and the threats that we face. And yet, like you say, we've got people who just reject it. And I don't know what you do about it. My kids are literally worried about the future of the planet because they're going to be here, and you and I probably aren't. And it's just falling apart.
Yeah, well, for many people that I talk to, the front door, if you will, is closed in getting the message to them. So I go around to the side door. By that I mean I don't talk about climate change. I talk about, saving money or lessening our dependence on foreign oil or, cleaning up the air in Houston and Bakersfield. You know, I talk about other things which, if we take the right actions to prevent climate change, it will do the same thing. It will lessen our dependence on foreign oil, be good for us financially, and also it'll make the air cleaner in places like Houston and Bakersfield, kind of red state areas. And so we have to get the message across to people to do the right thing. And we didn't even have to talk about climate change, just making our homes and offices more efficient and to use less foreign oil. And therein we will clean up the air and the water for people who may not even care about climate change.
You've been driving electric vehicles since they were called golf carts, right?
Right. I got my first one in 1970. It was a Taylor Dunn electric car. It was really electric cart with a T at the end. I didn't know that distinction back then, but I drove it around LA. People thought I was wacky. I probably was pretty wacky. I took Cindy Williams on a date. Cindy Williams from Laverne and Shirley, who
Right.
played Shirley, my dear friend Cindy. I took her on a date. There was never a second date. It wasn't exactly a Babe Magnet, this car. It had a tiller. It didn't have a steering wheel. It had canvas doors. And I had to judge the distance to the restaurant or the hill or something, as I should have. And so it was kind of going slow, pulling up to the restaurant. When I say slow, I mean really slow. A kid on a big wheel passed us by. Think a butterfly passed us by. And so it wasn't very practical for everything, but I used it to get around. And then years later, I had heard that electric cars had, come a little further as far as speed and efficiency and range. And so I started driving them again in 1990, and I haven't looked back. It's been a good way to, here's the best thing about electric cars. And I know this for a fact. This is a fact. I don't think anyone will even attempt to deny this. The fact is, you cannot make gasoline on the roof of your house. Will everyone listening today accept that fact, that you cannot make gasoline on the roof of your house? Period. End of sentence. You now start a new sentence. You can make electricity on the roof of your house. I know that for a fact too, because I've been doing it since 1990. And I know that you can make electricity from the wind because I've had a wind turbine as part of a wind farm in the California desert since 1985. So I know the technology works. I know it will also save us money in the long run. Both of them were good investments financially, and both of them lessened our dependence on foreign oil. So we have to do those things that we all know can work and will work, and we got to do them now. We got to quit denying it and arguing about it and just do it.
How do you get people to quit arguing and fighting about it? I mean, how do you deal with the denialists among us?
It's an unfortunate time in our nation's and our world history in that there's so much. It used to be that facts would matter. When the Republicans went into Richard Nixon's office after Watergate and says, Dick, you've got to resign for the good of the country. He did. He signed the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. Facts mattered. And now it's like, no, it's not happening. The election was a hoax. What do you mean it was a hoax? Prove that. You just made a statement. The first election between Biden and it was a hoax. Show me your proof. I want to see it. And they have all these crazy stories, but none of them are anything resembling proof. You have a Republican group called I can't remember the name of it, but they went in and they totally studied every single ballot in Arizona. the ninjas, the cyber ninjas or something, I think they're called. And they went in there and studied, and they went, no, there was no fraud in Arizona. And that's the way it's been. Correlation is not causation. There's another simple sentence. If people just listen to that sentence and accepted it, we'd be fine. Correlation is not causation. They see a video of a woman taking ballots and putting them, under a desk or something, and then later they pull them out to do more counting or something. That doesn't mean that anything crooked is going on. That means they said, we're done for the night. And somebody called and said, no, keep counting. And they pull them out. They show that as proof that there's election fraud. Right. Not so. Correlation is not causation. If you see something happening, if I go out in the front yard and I flap my arms around and then it rains an hour later, they say, well, you caused that rain by flapping your arms. No, I didn't. I just happened to be out there in my front yard flapping my arms. That has nothing to do with the fact it rained an hour later. You have to be scientific about this stuff, but it doesn't seem to matter anymore. People are more inclined to believe that it's space lasers, that George Soros paid for, the Rothschilds or somebody, that are causing our wildfires. Space lasers. They actually think that and say that. It's just insane. And that's where we're at, Susan. So I don't know how to combat that, just to keep speaking the truth, and hopefully at some point people will recognize it.
Are you optimistic about the future?
I am. I think at some point, I think we are a nation of mostly good people, the vast majority of good people on both sides of the aisle. I think many people, and I won't assign any party or anything to it, are, have poor judgment in who they trust. And so because of that, people are making some bad decisions. People in the heartland, good people that have proven over time that they care about our country. I think a lot of people have been misled by people, in positions of power, and that's quite unfortunate. We got to get back to the place where facts matter, and I think if we don't do that, we're lost.
What role does the media play in that?
A huge, huge role. I know when, there's certain broadcast networks, and I don't need to name them, cable news channels, yes, who say things that just simply aren't true and say them repeatedly. When we get it wrong, when I say we, I mean people, on my side of the aisle, I've always found that we're pretty good about saying, you made it. Dan Rather published a story about what is probably a true statement about George Bush's, war service, his military service, but it was a fake document. Dan Rather was out. Dan Rather was not around much after that. We're very tough on our own. A false story was published about a very young junkie in New York by the New York Times. That person was fired very quickly when it was discovered. They get a promotion on the other, side of things if they do a story that engages people in some way to do what their agenda says. We're very tough on our own. When people get things wrong, they admit them for the most part. In the kind of news channels that I watch and the newspapers that I listen to, and the other side just never. I've had stories about me that I called up somebody at Fox News. You got to print a retraction. That's not true, and here's why it's true. They never even return my call. They're not interested in getting it right, apparently, and that's unfortunate. When facts don't matter, you've got a real problem on your hands.
Yeah, we live with alternate realities, and we just don't see things the same way. It used to be when there were three news sources, you sort of, there was ABC, CBS, and NBC, and you sort of got the collective wisdom, and it was generally the same. Now we have alternate news stories, alternate realities, and we have people who literally believe climate change is a joke and that it's a liberal conspiracy and they're going to destroy the planet if they keep on that route, and there doesn't seem to be much we can do about it.
People used to care about, putting out the news as a service, and then it became a cash cow and a, profit
Entertainment.
leader. Yeah, and so now, the damage that Fox News has done over the years is unbelievable. I just can't imagine how if one town crier is saying things that are false in the town square all the time, how do you get anything accomplished in your little hamlet? You're not, because somebody's saying things that aren't true, and the town is believing it. I don't know how you recover from that.
I don't either. And it makes me nervous about what are you doing politically these days?
I support candidates that I believe in and different ballot measures and things I believe in. I do, work with the coalition for clean air still, helping to clean up there in LA and in the Southland and the state. And, I just am active with the people. I just did a wonderful thing with Wendy Wentland and Ruthie and all the people over there at CalPERG and, Environment America, Environment California. So, I just work with the people that I know get things done, and try to be of service whenever I can, and help the good ones, and do my part. And it gives me some small amount of pleasure to know I'm doing everything I can.
Well, you have done so much over the years. It's quite a blessing. Tell me about your career. What are your favorite things that you've done in your career?
I'm so lucky to have been working since 1967 as an
You work
actor,
continuously.
and
Have-
yeah, I'm so 57 years, a few 57 years, and still working in the aluminum siding business or car sales. You should be happy, in any business, to work nearly 60 years and
Yeah.
still working. I just finished on a picture yesterday. I just feel blessed. And let me be clear, what I've wanted in life is nothing nearly as good as what I've gotten. I auditioned for a show in 1982 called St. Elsewhere. I'd never heard of it, but the script was fantastic that I read for the pilot. And I auditioned for the part, Susan, of Dr. Peter White, and didn't get it. I didn't get the part of a regular, which is what I wanted. I didn't want to be just a guest artist. I wanted to be a regular cast member in the show. Auditioned for it, didn't get it. They threw me a bone and gave me this lesser characters, lines. I had maybe 2 lines in the pilot, but they said, maybe something more will come of it. The part I didn't get, that character was killed in the second season, shot in the groin and then in the stomach, because he was a hospital rapist. Dead and gone, Peter White, the character in the second season. I was there for the whole 6 seasons, every episode, and it was one of the most popular characters in the show, Dr.
Yeah.
Victor Ehrlich. The small little bit part that they threw me a bone and gave me because they liked me, or I don't know what. So what I've wanted in life is nothing compared to what I've actually gotten. I've been very lucky in so many ways and blessed. So I'm just grateful for this wonderful career and meeting wonderful people like yourself, doing wonderful things, and being of support to people that can make a change in this journey. And just happy to still be doing it.
What movie did you just finish?
It was called Let's Have Kids, and it's a very funny script. I shot it up in Portland. My son lives in Portland, so that was a treat to get up there again and see my son and grandkids. Wonderful. Mary Steenburgen is in it too, and
Wonderful.
I love her.
Back a long way with her, don't you?
Yes, I've known her since her first movie. I worked on her very first movie, Jack Nicholson cast her in, called Going South, and we've been friends ever since. Ted Danson, her wonderful husband, Ted, and I are very good friends too. And I just love that woman and her wonderful work and her kids and
They've done a
the
lot
whole
of
gang there.
as well.
Yes.
You've had an amazing career. What's next?
What's next? I'm going to give a speech in Florida at the end of the month. I'm still out promoting this book. I wrote a book called To the Temple of Tranquility and Step
Right.
on It, which we spoke of earlier. And so I've been
Wonderful
promoting
book.
the book and doing lots of stuff associated with that, different book signings and working. And I just finished working on Young Sheldon, that wonderful show, Young Sheldon.
Yeah.
So I just love that show and everybody on that. The kid Ian is wonderful, and Steve Milaro, the showrunner, is great. All of them. I had the best time working on that. And Better Call Saul with Bob Odenkirk and Ray Seahorn and Patrick Fabian. I just love that show, working on that right up till the end. You know, here I am, 74 years old and still working. I'm quite surprised, but pleased.
Well, you shouldn't be surprised. You're one of the great talents. Ed Begley, it's just such a pleasure to talk to you and have you on. And I can't recommend your book highly enough. It's got a wonderful theme of gratitude that runs through it that I find just touching, to be honest, and of gratitude and of service to the community. And that's really just very special. And it's got some amazing stories. You've met everybody in the business. I don't think there's a name I didn't see in the book. So I just want to thank you for taking the time and joining us today, and recommend to everybody listening and watching that they go out and go to the Temple of Tranquility and step on it, and keep stepping on it is all I can say.
Thank you, Susan. It's great to talk to you. I've always admired you as well. And it's just a treat to spend time with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to No Holding Back with me, Susan Estridge. Join us for the next episode. If you've enjoyed this one, you can check us out on our website, noholdingback.fm. Please leave a review or a rating and tell your friends to listen, and go buy Ed Begley's book. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.